Breaking news, April 17th, 2025 by Max Rice, the Illinois Record. Cook County GOP chair fight April 22nd at Moretti's Pizzeria in Edison Park, aka Elmwood Park. The Illinois Record breaks down the likely Chicago candidates vying for Cook County Republican chair. On April 22nd, around 75 Republican misfits will meet at Moretti's in Elmwood Park to elect the new Cook County Republican chair, replacing the disgraced Sean Morrison, who resigned this month. By law, the next chair must be an elected GOP committeeman, limiting the options to the goofy, the bad, and the ugly. Leading candidate Brian Castle gives a speech at Moretti's. The Cook County GOP controls one of the country's wealthiest, most populous counties, yet only $4,000 is available in their official account. How can the Cook County GOP expect to go so far when they only have the funds to buy a single Vespa? As you can see, only $4,100. $4,400 of the Vespa is $4,149. The Cook County GOP's financial and electoral failures ought to be a major issue in the chair's election. Illinois GOP suffered major election losses in suburbs that are critical for its rebuilding effort by the Tribune. Yet IllinoisSunshine.com can confirm that it is not an exaggeration to state that most committeemen haven't raised a dollar in years. The committeemen might prefer to just shut up about the issues, eat pizza, and select the preferred candidates of their silent patron's choice. The typical Cook County GOP committeeman often does not electioneer in the slightest. He primarily exists to carry out the weighted vote for a patron, whether it be a special interest group, a union, a foreign country, another committeeman, an unpopular donor, or more. In exchange for showing up to vote in one election every 2 years, these often unknown committeemen will get to use a title they can use to puff up their resumes or dating profiles on Grindr. Morrison, who's on his way out, still controls the most C-Nos, chair in name only, and will play a significant role in shaping the outcome. But he's not the only one with puppets. Other benefactors as diverse as Republican megadonors, potential Republican candidates for governor, and possibly even the SEIU are also in the mix. Candidates will announce their intentions on the day of the event. The public doesn't get a vote, but can and should show up. If not, email your committeeman. Ask why they've raised no money. Ask who they work for. Contact info is public at cookcountygop.com. How the vote works. It's weighted. No committeeman holds more than 5%, and some have as little as 0.5%. If they don't attend Moretti's Pizzeria, their vote disappears and gets reallocated to those present. There's also a serious split between city and suburban committeemen, with different factions, different interests, different patrons tugging at the strings. In part 1, we break down the top city candidates. Part 2 will cover the suburbs. We've talked to insiders, read the group chats, followed the money. Here's who from Chicago is most likely to rise from the puddle and emerge chair of the Cook County Republican Party. Chicago candidates: Brian Castle, 5th Ward, owner of 4-Star Wealth Advisors. Castle is best known in the financial advisor world for spoofing an 88-year-old client's email and taking over $1 million. Public trust is an issue. The public generally doesn't like politicians who victimize old ladies, but public trust doesn't vote. Shady Republican committeemen do. Castle is the most likely committeeman from Chicago to win the Cook County chair. 88-year-old woman wins $1.1 million claim against William Blair, ex-brokers. William Blair and 2 ex-brokers of the firm have been sacked with a $1.1 million arbitration decision that centered on 2 brokers setting up a phony email address where they sent statements from the brokerage account of an 88-year-old woman. Widow. In the political world, Castle got his start with the Bush family. First, he was a delegate for HW in '88, then the Chicago coordinator for W in 2000. Since then, as a PAC owner, committeeman, and Illinois GOP Finance Board member, Castle has been quietly affecting the GOP behind the scenes. Like if Gru from Despicable Me was played by Chicago acting legend Dennis Farina. Over the years, Castle has been quietly building a minion of misfit Chicago committeemen that will give Castle the power to sway an election, if not win outright. Castle is a vocal supporter of the company Surus and close ally to Surus worker and 7-time world champion marching coach Jeff Fiedler. That matters, Jeff Fiedler. Surus' business model relies on compliance from Cook County GOP committeemen and has long-term financial commitments from high-weight suburban committeemen like Joe Folisi, Schaumburg, Jim Stinson, Maine, and Northfield's T.J. Brown. Additionally, 7 committeemen share Castle's resentment towards Trump's near-complete purge of the Bush-era neocons that they looked up to and learned from in the early years of their political careers. The alliance of committeemen influenced by Soros, who are bitter towards Trump and his misfit minions, could be enough of an alliance to secure victory. A Castle chairmanship would mean pivoting left and backward into the grimy puddles of W. Bush's policy failure. Ramona Bonea's 31st Ward. Ramona Boneas poses with Chicago Teachers Union favorite Mayor Brandon Johnson. A chief union steward, Chicago Public Schools, and three-term elected executive board member, SEIU Local 73, when Ramona Boneas ran for 31st GOP chair, she sought approval and funds from the famously Democrat SEIU board, raising the possibility that she is an entire Democrat plant. Why did she approve the locals' contribution to my political fund when I ran as a Republican committee woman for the 31st Ward? Bomani Anale lawyered up and is hoping to regain her post in the said based on the First Amendment. The minion-minded in the Chicago GOP is rallying behind her as a long-shot attempt to damage the powerful SEIU. SEIU teacher assistants get an average pay of $32,000 a year. Leaked email among the ne'er-do-well Chicago GOP committeemen. Ramona has a history of vulgar speech, and SEIU may end up looking good while the Chicago GOP looks foolish, fighting for one of their leaders to get their job back at a union they opposed. We obtained a voice message in which Bomani Anale uses strong sexual language and calls a few Republican activists a nasty bitch. Pure discretion is advised. A party that rails against DEI and union meddling should think twice before rallying behind Bonilla Anale. But a lot of Chicago Republicans have an unhealthy obsession with race and gender that can cause logical blind spots. Bonilla Anale would be an embarrassing, hypocritical pick for Cook County chair, which in the Cook County GOP is no deterrent to success. Steve Bolton. Although Ivy League educated and practicing law for over 3 decades, Bolton has not risen above run-of-the-mill lawyer and is now working under former Democrat Cook County committeeman Tony Pareka's law firm. To the public, Pareka's most notable moment was getting arrested for whacking his opponent's campaign sign. However, Tony Pareka showed Steve Bolton the playbook to employ past their prime Democrats to raise significant money by running as Republicans in Cook. Pareka ended up running 4 elections as a Republican in Cook County, losing each election but raising money and having fun along the way. Bolton would rise to the position of Chicago GOP chair and fully embrace Pareka's strategy of championing failed Democrats to run as Republicans. Here you can see Bolton on the left. Former Democratic alderman Bob Fioretti, who looks like a nightclub character in a Beetlejuice movie, is a prime example of a candidate Bolton would prop up in repeated countywide races. Fioretti was a founding member of the Progressive Alderman Caucus, but experienced a second political life running doomed campaigns for state's attorney and county commissioner. Controversially, Bolton ignored the Chicago mayor's race, never running a Republican mayor during his term as Chicago GOP. Thankfully, Bolton's chairship would end in irony and disgrace. Bolton publicly boasted about his hard work, however, he failed to do the bare minimum to appear on the ballot. Your stalwart Chicago GOP are dropping literature of the April 4th election, braving the cold of the Democrats to turn the Republican vote. Okay, there were coffee and donuts. A committeeman's fundamental responsibility is to collect signatures to appear on the ballot. Bolton felt the need to collect only less than 20 signatures and outsource the other 280 to questionable figures who did not know the district or have a stake in collecting legitimate signatures. In a sign of bad leadership, Bolton has blamed Democrats, Republicans, and random people, including the author of this post, for his removal. However, the truth is that Bolton's laziness, unfamiliarity with the community, and critical inability to do the job led to his removal. Yet, like a gadfly in a Turkish bathhouse, Bolton reemerged and was appointed 29th Ward Chair, highlighting his legitimate pull in the GOP Cook Committee community. There is chatter that Bolton seems to have a triumphant return by taking the chair on April 22nd. However, he faces a genuine setback due to his unlikability. He often berates Cook area Republicans online and in person. Also, Bolton's intent to force long, uninteresting speeches on all occasions is something that even his closest allies may dread. However, Bolton holds a few queens in the Cook County GOP House of Cards and has a slippery path to victory. Amy Kessam, 41st Ward. A police officer and serial candidate for office. If Kessam were to win, she would be a puppet for Matt Podgorski and his Northwest Side GOP. At one point, the Northwest Side GOP looked like a refreshing force, fielding strong candidates like Anthony Beckman and Jeff Muhlefelder in neighborhoods long abandoned by the Republican Party, leading them to near victory. Anthony Beckman nearly won his election for state senator despite fighting cancer and working his job as a police officer. The author of this piece was a member back then and remembers the club feeling more like a matchmaking scheme than a political operation. Podgorski, married then, seemed to run the Northwest Side GOP essentially to impress his also married crush, Amy Kasem. They're married to each other now. The club has spent no small amount of energy boosting the Northwest Side's political couple's multiple campaigns, including Kasem's successful bid for 41st Ward committeeman. However, Podgorski may not have needed the club to score his bride. The real motivating factor for the NSW GOP club might have been to grease the wheels for Podgorski's polling firms. First, Ogden and Fry, then post-divorce M3 Strategies. M3 pulled in over $513,000 on Paul Vallis's mayoral campaign alone. To the benefit of the moderate Democrat Chicago school president, Paul Vallis, the NWS GOP didn't advocate for a Republican to run for mayor in Chicago, and many Republicans are bitter about the lack of a challenge and a question of financial motivation. Under Podgorski and Kasem, the club has alienated local conservatives by playing footsie with Democrats and refusing to run GOP candidates for school board, alderman, or mayor. Their strategy seems clear: back moderate Democrats with business or political ties to M3. I might also add judicial candidates. Additionally, Kasem herself has a reputation problem across the aisle. Republicans and Democrats alike have called her rude and divisive. She once barred black conservative activist George Blakemore from a Tom Homan speaking event, causing such a stir that Illinois GOP Chair Kathy Salvi and RNC Committeeman Dean White had to take Blakemore out for seafood as damage control. With Illinois Republican Party Chairman Kathy Salvi, RNC Committeeman Dean White, Chair of the Illinois Republican Party's Finance Committee, Brian Castle, and Eric and Dr. Cornell Darden Jr. Interesting. Local Democrats have also accused her of racism, homophobia, doxing a teacher. Kasem, who also has complaints as a Chicago police sergeant, if elected, would be an easy target for Democrats. Democrat blogger using Kasem as a target to denigrate Republicans and police officers. The Northwest Side GOP Area Committee only controls around 10% of the weighted vote, but if the Democrat Party has plants, they may get behind Kasem to use her unpopularity as a way to deflect from the Democrat failed policies. It is an unfortunate fact that many of the 80 voting GOP committeemen can be considered creepy and that it is the reality of the voting population that will decide the chair. We do not advocate that Kasem go for the chair, but if Kasem really was dead set on getting the chair to obtain 6 to 7 figures of M3 strategy clientele, creepy old men are her best hope. Kasem's path to victory is dark and slimy, but obtainable. Walter Adamczyk, 33rd Ward, known as Chicago Wally. Adamczyk is a West Side community leader and one of the rare GOP committeemen who have raised over $1,000 this year. Adamczyk is an independent Trump-supporting candidate with common sense ideas that tackle significant issues. Specifically, Adamczyk wants the party to fight gerrymandering, citing a lack of Polish representation, and repeal the Pat Quinn-created cutback amendment that has mathematically given Democrats an unfair advantage. His deputy committeeman is Twitter sensation lawyer Pericles Abazi. Although known for edgy, ironic memes on Twitter, Abazi has been praised by an election lawyer as the best election lawyer in Illinois. He routinely beats both Cook area Republicans and Democrats in court. Pericles has ties to the FOP, the Democratic Party, and the Republican Party, but is a staunch supporter of President Trump. Pericles could be a real asset in fighting Illinois law designed for Republicans to lose in Cook County. Walt's path to victory hinges on either Pericles uncovering a Perry Mason-style legal loophole or the sheer force of Chicago Wally. Many of the voting committeemen aren't exactly known for their appetite for confrontation. C.J. Gallo, 2nd Ward. C.J. Gallo started his political journey with the Bruce Rauner for Governor campaign. He now runs Souris operations in Illinois. C.J. insists that the GOP clubs are key to party success, and professionally he needs them to be. Christopher C.J. Gallo, Illinois State Director. Souris has often been criticized as a neocon middleman who has played a key part of the Republican Party's electoral disappearance from Cook and the collar counties. It's a business that sells influence. Gallo, to his credit, has built genuine relationships with committeemen. His people skills are strong. Souris has multi-year contracts with high-weight committeemen in Schaumburg, Maine, Northfield, Chicago, and more. If they line up behind him, he's a top-tier contender. From Soros' perspective, a Gallo win makes perfect sense. There are still 7 figures in potentially yearly revenue from Cook County organizations that haven't played ball: Elk Grove, Norwood Park, Evanston, New Trier, and more. Facebook Soros Jeff Feeler wins the Ronald Reagan Award from the Chicago Young Republicans. Gallo's best chance is in a crowded, chaotic race where enough flawed candidates dilute the field and give him commitment aligned with Soros' room to back him while maintaining plausible deniability. That way, if Soros faces blowback for its role in the Illinois GOP's broader failures, those committeemen can deflect responsibility that the alternatives were even worse. This is IllinoisRecord.com. This is the Cook County GOP chair fight, April 22nd at Moretti's Pizzeria. Hope you've enjoyed this article by Max Rice.